All right, hey there, jazz band. This is lesson for Thursday, September the 3rd, I think. Okay, so starting to get a good number of questions from you guys, which is great because that means you're watching the videos and you're giving this a try. There's one really important part that I've left out that may be kind of a missing link, especially for our newer folks. You know, the challenge for me has been that for some folks, this is probably their third year they've heard the whole 12-bar blues and the scale degrees and all that. And not that it's bad for them to review it, because most likely maybe there's something they've missed along the way that now they understand better. But for our new folks, I've been kind of talking two different levels, one for the beginners that this is new for, and then I've been trying to throw some things in there for the folks who had all this, like the flat threes, flat sevens, flat fives. So when it gets to those terms and those notes, if you're not keeping up with that, first of all, it's okay. It probably means that this is your first year of doing jazz. I want you to just stick within the notes within the scales, because we really can't talk about altering notes and changing notes and getting to sound bluesier or more bluesy, I'm not sure which is right, until we have, I'll say, the true basics down, okay? So really kind of our last missing link here are talking about the primary chords when we're talking about 12-bar blues. I found another video I'm gonna attach as well, and it's a guitar player, and they're gonna be talking in A blues. So those on guitar and bass, the string instruments, that talk may make a little more sense to you, because I mean, you can see fingers, and he talks, you know, kind of specifically about the fretboard, okay? However, it's a good video for everyone to see, because he's gonna talk about this business, and that person may say it in a slightly different way than I do, and maybe that clicks for you. Okay, so after this video, if you're still not connecting all the dots here, watch that. And like I said, maybe you'll just hear it in a different way, and then all of a sudden the light bulb turns on for you, okay? So the last, this is gonna be the primary chords 1, 4, and 5. Now, the thing you have to keep straight, we use numbers an awful lot, and they don't always mean, we have Roman numerals, as you can see here, and then we have our regular Arabic numbers down here below. And their use, there's a reason why we have Roman numerals and then we use these. So we try to keep the use of those consistent. Roman numerals are always going to be talking about chords, okay? I know it looks like chords with a CH, but it's pronounced like a K, chord, you know, like an electrical cord, extension cord. And, you know, chords are 3 or more notes. I think I may be getting off the screen here. Okay, but chords are 3 or more notes that sound together or strummed together. You know, obviously, a wind instrument can't play a chord because you can only play one note at a time. So chords mean a lot for the piano player, the guitar player. Bass player is more one note at a time, walking lines. However, everyone needs to understand the concept of chords, because that's where you can be, that's what gives you notes to choose from to build melodies when you improv. So if you understand what notes are in the one chord, that gives you an arsenal of notes to use. And then it also gives you notes that you can get outside of the chord with, but you know how to appropriately handle it. Now that sentence is for someone who's been doing this for a little bit. If you're the beginner, we just want to stick with the chords, okay, the notes that are in the chords. So what I've started with up here is the good old C major scale. The nice thing about Roman numerals for our class, you know, we have alto and baries that transpose a certain way. We have tenor sax and trumpets that transpose a certain way. And then we have trombones and rhythm sections that don't transpose. So when I say a C scale, they play a C scale, and they read a C scale, and what comes out of their horn or electric instrument is a C. Okay, for the alto, bari, tenor, trumpet, okay, that's not the case with you. You read a C on the trumpet and tenor, but actually what's coming out of your instrument is a B flat, okay? So if we can talk in Roman numerals, then we can get away from me having to talk 3 different keys at one time. You know, I can just say, all right, the only time we need to kind of get on the same page is, all right, everybody, I'm doing B flat blues. Okay, so trombone and rhythm section, you're done because you play B flat. Alto, bari, you're in G blues. Okay, and then the tenor and trumpet, you're in C blues. So then we can apply the Roman numerals within your given keys, and it makes a group discussion on this much, much easier. And, so remember we have scale degrees, okay, and those are the individual numbers that go under the individual notes of a given scale. This is a C scale, all right? So scale degree 1 is a C. That's the note that the C scale starts on because we call it a C, right? So that's a 1. Then the next note, D, is scale degree 2, and we keep going. Now, I've been drawing your attention to certain scale degrees within a given scale, and that's been scale degrees 1, 3, and 5. I put the note stem on here just to make them stick out. Okay, and then also 8. And remember, 8 and 1 are the same note. C and C, they're just an octave apart. Now notice I put the 9th in parentheses because I've talked quite a bit about the 9th, and that's a good thing to add to our scale exercises because it keeps us in 4/4 time. So I put the 9th and the number 9 in parentheses, and then the 9th of the D in parentheses. Just put the 2nd, just like the 1st and the 8th are the same pitch, just an octave apart. The 2nd and the 9th are the same pitch, just an octave apart. So scale degrees 1, 3, and 5 create the C chord. The C, and specifically because this is a C major scale, it's also a C major chord. Because there's a C minor scale. There's all kinds, guys, there's major scales, minor scales, and then a whole bunch more beyond that. Okay, and some of the upperclassmen have actually started to get into those kind of modal keys. So for you new folks, major scales are about this much of the bucket of scales that exist. Okay, it's just, but we always start with that because our music that our ears are used to are based in a lot of major keys as well as minor keys. We hear major and minor really well. That's a comfortable sound for our ears. So we have scale degrees 1, 3, 5. So when you take scale degrees 1, 3, and 5 and stack them on top of one another and play them at the same time, we now have the C major chord. And notice I just put the letter C underneath it. All right, so that's a shortcut. When I just write a C, that means 3 notes from the C major scale, scale degrees 1, 3, and 5, played at the same time. Okay, then I'm gonna add one more thing below it. Okay, and because this chord is based, the root of the chord, the bottom note, just like the roots of a tree, the bottom note, since it's based on C, which is the first scale degree, we give this the designation of a Roman numeral 1. So that's the 1 chord in C. A lot of numbers here, guys. And I bet even the upperclassmen will tell you it's easy to get them confused. The easy thing, not the easy thing, but the thing to remember is Roman numerals deal with chords. Our regular numbers, Arabic numbers, deal with individual notes. Okay, the scale degrees, chords. All right, so now we're going to go to the 4th note of our C scale, okay, the 4th scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's F. Okay, so our 4 chord in the key of C is an F chord because it's built on the 4th scale degree. Now, how do you figure out the notes of the 4 chord? Well, if you notice in the C chord, it was every other note, right? 1, 3, 5. So it's going to be every other note. It's just, where do you start? Okay, we start on the 4th scale degree, 4. So the 4 chord is built on 4, 6, and 8. F, A, C. So our 4 chord is F, because that's the bottom note. All right? Built on, now, you know, if this works for you, okay, awesome. You know, that's going to be scale degrees 4, 6, and 8. Okay, but if you also just remember the every other note within the key, okay? So if we were in a key that the 6th scale degree had an A flat in it, okay, that A flat would still be there. Okay? The reason I started with C is because C has no flats or sharps. Okay? And then notice the other one is the 5 chord. So it's going to be built on the 5th scale degree, okay, which is a G. Every other note, 5, 7, 9. G, B, D. So here are your 3 primary chords, 1, 4, and 5, based in the key of C. Okay. So a C chord is 1, the F chord is 4, the G chord is 5. Okay, now, how does this work in the blues then? Hey, sorry, trombone and bass, I'm going to use bass clef. I'm going to use treble clef here. There's my first 4 measures. So I'm going to write out the 12 bar blues here. And let me look in the camera, make sure all this makes it. Yes, it does. Okay. So we're going to do C blues. So what I need, this is I think the important thing I haven't explained yet. So in a blues phrase, the first 4 measures are the 1 chord. So think back to B flat blues. Remember the first 4 measures were based in B flat, the 1 chord. So this would be in C blues would be the C chord. And that lasts for the first 4 measures of the piece, okay? And then our chord tones are C, E, and G. So for these first 4 measures, I can create a melody using these 3 notes. Now there's those of you that have been doing this a while, you can use some other notes, and hopefully you know how to use them in passing, or if you want to throw in some of the blues tones that we've been talking about. But for our beginners, I want you to just worry about the notes in the C chord. Okay, so that's the 1 chord. Okay, then at measure 5, we move to the 4 chord, okay, which in the key of C is F. I may be off the screen here. Okay, which was F, A, and C. And that lasts for 2 measures. And then we go back to the 1 chord, which is C. We stay there for 2 measures. So our 12 bar blues, the first 4 measures is a 1 chord, Roman numeral 1. Measures 5 and 6 is the 4 chord. And then in measure 7 and 8, we come back to the 1 chord. So in the first 8 measures of this C blues, 6 of those 8 measures are based on the C chord. Okay, you just have to know when the chord changes to those Roman numerals. Okay, so you know when to use C, E, and G, and then it will change to where you need to use F, A, and C. Okay? Now notice, the C is in common between both those chords. So a C can work up here as well as down here. All right, now it's this third line where people can stumble because the chords change much quicker. Okay, so in measure 9, and I know I've got Roman numerals up top and then the actual chord down at the bottom. Okay, we go to the 5 chord. Measure 10, we go to the 4 chord. Measure 11 to the 1 chord. Now I've been having you stay in that 1 chord, but it's not unusual that then measure 12 actually cycles back to the 5 chord, which leads you back up to that there. So sometimes you'll see it where measure 12 stays on the 1 chord. Sometimes it's perfectly okay that measure 12 is the 5 chord. Now they call these 4 measures the turnaround. Okay, because the chords are changing so quickly, to the listener, they can tell it's leading us somewhere. So it's turning us around to take us back up here to the beginning, and then we get 4 measures of the C chord, and it kind of stays stagnant for a bit. All right, so the 5 chord is the G chord. Okay, the 4 chord you already know is the F chord. And then the 1 chord goes back to C, and then if you want to throw the 5 chord in the last measure, that would go there. Or you could stay on C. Okay, so then the G chord is G, B, and D. There's your chord tones that you can use to build a melody. Now understand, you want to keep it simple because it only lasts 1 measure, and then it goes down the step to F, A, and C. And I know these are terribly written, okay, because I've got a nub of a piece of chalk here. And then it returns to home base, the C chord, C, E, and G. So this is C blues, C 12-bar blues. And understand there's 8-bar blues, there's 16-bar blues, there's 24-bar blues. 12-bar blues is not the only phrasing of the blues. However, it's the most recognized and it's kind of the most standard. But people have changed and lengthened and shortened those phrases over the years. Okay, so this is just our starting point. But in 12-bar blues, the first 4 measures is based on the 1 chord. And this is really the crux of what I want you to understand, because we can talk Roman numerals now. The first 4 measures is based on the 1 chord. Okay? Then measures 5 and 6 is based on the 4 chord. 7 and 8, the 1 chord. Measure 9, the 5. Measure 10, the 4. Measure 11, the 1 chord. 12 is your option. You can keep it on the 1 chord. If you're a beginner, keep it on the 1 chord. If you're more advanced, jump to the 5, because if you can change chords every measure and build a sensible melody, changing chords that quickly, you're on the right track. If this is all brand new to you, I would hang here on that C chord, okay? And then it repeats and it just cycles through again. So my final thing. And I want to show you why the Roman numerals can simplify. Now you have to know scales for Roman numerals to be helpful. Okay, because if you're in the key of E flat blues and you can't figure out what the 4th, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, doesn't do you much good. All right. So, but here, when we're talking a class discussion, and we've got instruments that transpose differently and all that, this is all I got to do. Okay, so we're going to go to F blues. Okay, so home base is F, so you need to learn an F major scale and what that key is. And once you learn the F major scale, put the scale degrees with it, and then you can begin to then build your 4 and 5 chord. Okay, from that. But I can say F blues, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 4, and then that repeats back to Roman numeral 1, to Roman numeral 5, to 4, So 1, and then we'll put 5 in parentheses because that's an option. That's a lot cleaner. Okay. So I'm going to do this one in bass clef, okay, just so I can throw one at them. So here's my F major scale. Now this is where you just got to learn your scales, guys. Notice I threw that B flat there because the 4th scale degree is flatted, okay, because there's your key of F. It has 1 flat in it. Then I can take my scale degrees. I'm going to throw my 9th up here in parentheses because that's helpful. Okay, so here's 1, 3, and whoops, that's 4, not 5. There's scale degrees 1, 3, and 5. Okay, now I'm putting the chord in treble clef now. Okay, F, A, C. So there's my chord tones for the one chord. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my 4th note. So every other one. Okay, B flat, D, and F, which that's the same chord of the B flat blues. But in B flat blues, that's the 1 chord. So you're going to start to learn that when you learn a chord in 1 key, it's going to come back maybe as a different Roman numeral, but the notes will be the same. Okay, so there's your 4 chord, and there's your 3 chord tones, B flat, D, and F. Okay, then we go back to the 1 chord. And we've got the 5, the last one we have to figure out is the 5, which is here. 5, 7, 9. Okay, and that is your C, which was C, E, and G. So there's your chord tones for the 5 chord. 4 chord, 1 chord, and then if you want to throw the 5 in again. And again, these 4 measures 9, 10, 11, and 12, it's called the turnaround because it's bringing us back up to the beginning. And we cycle through that chord progression again. All right, so I you know, with today's assignment being an improv on Flipgrid, I got quite a few questions on that, and it's been primarily from the newer folks, and I could just tell there was a missing link, and it's like, you know, I had not talked about this. So I'm hoping that maybe that will fill in some gaps for you here. Now, you've got to learn scales if you want to learn how to build chords, which then leads you how to build melodies. It all starts with scales, guys. And so what I'm going to have you do, I've got the second video, the guitar player, and like I said, I think he's going to say probably the same things I have, but he may say it in a different way that may click with some of you, especially the guitar players. All right. I'm going to have you do one more improv today in B flat blues, and I may try to find a primary chord exercise. May be successful in that, may not. And then tomorrow I'm going to try and have you change into a new key, into a different key. It's going to be closely related, like F blues. So now instead of your 1 chord being B flat, the 1 chord will now move to F. You need to find the 4, and you need to find the 5, which is right behind me, and then build a melody on an F blues phrase. All right. Then I will see tomorrow cohort B blue, and it's kind of weird. I was making seating charts, and the cohort B is almost entirely rhythm section with a couple of instrumentalists. So that's not all bad because I can kind of tailor my discussions to that group of instruments. I think Shane and maybe even Cincha was the other instrumentalist. And then when I see that cohort A, we have Josh on bass and then Trent, or our only rhythm sections in there, and then it's all the other winds. So that's not an all bad thing because I can kind of tailor my discussion on those group of instruments there. So keep working on this, and hopefully it'll begin to make sense. I think there's a lot of merit in this online Flipgrid stuff. Hopefully I'm doing a decent job of explaining, as long as you're reading the slides and actually viewing the videos. If you're kind of cherry picking things, you're probably going to have some things you don't understand because you're not keeping up. But if you can get through all these talks and walk away understanding this, you will never forget it because you taught it to yourself. At the end of the day, you taught it to yourself. So I think there's a lot of merit in this because it does put a little more responsibility on you. It's not me just saying the same things over and over again during class. So, okay, that's it for today. Thanks.